Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of BC Buckets. I'm Matthew Bruni, and joining me once again is Colin Mitchell. And today, Colin, we have G.G. Jackson, South Carolina freshman, 18 and a half years old. I think he's the youngest player that we have on our boards because he reclassified from the 2023 class down to the 2022 class and played this past year at South Carolina. South Carolina was obviously a very they were a bad team. They were the bad
Yeah,
team.
not great.
One of the worst, if not the worst, in the SEC this past year. And y'all might be saying, why are we doing GG Jackson? Because we both had on our schedule, we had an option to pick a player. Colin and I did, and I wanted GG Jackson. Watching him in the SEC this past year, watching him at South Carolina, he is one of the more divisive players, I'd say, or one of the biggest question marks at this point. So I'll throw it to you. What are your initial thoughts on GG Jackson?
After watching him and seeing his situation and all of that, he reminds me a lot, not in terms of the player, but in terms of the situation of Jaden McDaniels, where he's an offensive guy in college. We don't know if he has a high enough motor, decision making, attitude. GG Jackson has all of the potential and all of the problems that I feel like Jaden McDaniels had a couple years ago. With that being said, I think GG Jackson is a lot more gifted as an offensive player than Jaden McDaniels was. I mean, it was honestly really impressive to see what an 18-year-old is doing in a really bad team and a really bad situation and still, able to put up numbers. I mean, 15.4 points, 5.9 rebounds, 3.9 assists, almost a block a game. Obviously, there's some efficiency issues with a lot of those stats. Regardless, he did a lot with nothing.
Honestly, we'll start with his offense because that's the biggest selling point for me.
Right.
38.4% from the field and 32.4% from three. Is that really that bad for a player that had the load that he had on offense? And really, his second best player, Michi Johnson, who was very inconsistent, he didn't have anybody around him.
Yeah.
And he's playing in the SEC, which is second or third best basketball conference in the country. This was a very difficult situation to be in. And I think he knew that kind of going into it. I mean, he was committed to North Carolina at one time and then flipped to South Carolina when he reclassified. But he was going into a situation that wasn't good. It was a new coach. And a lot of times it was just like, all right, GG, just go. And I think you look at his jumper, you look at his tools, you look at his feel for the game at 18 years old. He's not going to be 19 until December.
Yeah.
We talked about Cam Whitmore. At least Cam Whitmore is like a couple months older than GG Jackson. I mean, I'm not saying I have GG Jackson on that level, but from a field perspective, offense perspective, 56% at the rim. I think his length is good. I think he'll continue to be a good finisher. I just see way too much offensive upside to have him outside of the top 20.
Yeah.
I can't see that because another thing I like to do is for high school players, I like to look back at their high school tape, but also their high school rankings. And he was the number one player in the class for a reason. Now, if he would have stayed in high school another year, he would have been the number one player in this class, right? Obviously going into this freshman season, or number 1 and 2 player. And I think that holds a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So I look at all that and I'm like, all right, I can't have him outside the top 20. For me, he's in the top 15 at this moment on my board, which I think is probably an unpopular take, but where do you have him?
I mean, I have him above guys and these guys aren't high, but I have him above Ryan Rupert and Bilal Coulibaly and Nick Smith. I have him above Derek Lively. I mean, I think he's going to be a really good player in the NBA, and mostly just because, like you already said, his offensive potential and already skill set right now translates, it seems like, to the NBA at the very least. And then, he's not like an unathletic guy. I think defense will come. I think a lot of the lapses came from situation. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with South Carolina in terms of drama and whatever you want to say around the team, but I feel like you get him in the right situation, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, and I think the Jaden McDaniels comparison early on, where not in play style but in situation, is very apt. Because what do we see now from Jay McDaniels? He's a great defender. Like
Yeah, and
we never
he
would have.
was not that in college at
Yeah,
all.
we never would have guessed that because he literally didn't care about defense because he was at Washington, a school that doesn't care about defense and sits in his zone half the time. Like it's the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
If GG Jackson was at like Tennessee or something like that, I think he would have been more inclined to play defense. Not saying he would have been great at it, but defensively, I will say the one thing for him besides motor, he does need to get quicker. He's not
Mhm.
quite quick enough. And I think that's on both sides of the ball, but I think specifically on defense is where it shows because he's going to have to guard wings. And you look at wings across the NBA, a lot of them are quicker than him. I'm interested to see how he develops as a defender because he has the length. I just think as far as quickness goes, that's where he's going to have to improve. Where else do you want to see him improve?
I would say just decision making. This kind of comes to the percentages part that I was talking about earlier. Not necessarily his 3-point shooting, but more so his turnovers. He had 27 assists to 86 turnovers. He can kind of get out of control, but again, a lot of that situation. If guys aren't making shots, you're not going to get a lot of assists. So I think the fact that he had the ball in his hands all the time really exacerbated what looked bad on offense. But I think the thing he could control himself is just staying in control, not trying to go up crazy. Not settling for that midi that he likes so much, and then improving his finishing. In the half court, he was only 48% from at the rim, so just improving his finishing in the half court. But I mean, listen, a lot of this stuff, it's hard to read him because you see the skill, right? But a lot of it just seems to have been situation.
Yeah, and that's you kind of mentioned the athleticism. I'm interested to see if he gets more athletic with the quickness, with the strength overall, because there's a lot of different ways his career can go. There's a lot of different paths to where he could be a four-man that can score, and maybe he improves defensively. Maybe he improves as a creator a little bit more. I just think there's too many avenues right now to where he pans out. The big question for me is he should go to a team. If we're talking outside the lottery, right? He should go to a team that will give him that time to develop,
Yeah,
right? Like
and
we
has a
kind of
player that he can kind of be mentored by.
exactly. Like we saw the Warriors draft all those young players like Jalen Johnson and Kuminga and whatnot, and they're allowed to develop. Obviously, maybe they're not getting on the court enough at that place, considering all the veterans they have. But still, I think you can find a spot where he can come off the bench and develop, and maybe not play for his first year a ton, but I think by year 2 or 3, I just look at him and say, there's no way he's not going to be good at 21 years old.
Right.
And I know that might be long term. We might look back on this in a year and be like, damn, he's not even playing right now. But give him 2 to 3 years. And I'm just like, I'm happy betting on GG Jackson being a contributor to an NBA team in 3 years. And that's how I'm looking at this because he's 18 and a half years old. We can look at, we're going to do another show on Maxwell Lewis. Maxwell Lewis is 21 years old almost.
Yeah.
Like imagine GG Jackson at 21 years old.
Yep.
That's where I'm trying to get to. And I'm just like, he has way too many tools, way too much talent to really fail unless if it's the defense never comes around and he just doesn't, the feel for the game isn't enough, I guess, at that point. But the defense has to come around, the passing a little bit, the overall shot selection has to be better. But I believe in him too much.
What's your comp? Because I know you got to have at least 4 or 6
I have 3.
or 9.
I have
Okay,
3,
3.
and they're all kind of, I don't want to say unathletic, but they're all kind of the similar type of big guard wing / guys that aren't super athletic. So the first one I'll throw you a curveball with to start. Bojan Bogdanovic.
Actually, I really like that one.
Right? You see it? You see it?
I actually really like that one.
Okay. The other
Dang,
two,
I would never have thought of that. That's great.
right? Bojan Bogdanovic, right? Because obviously the scoring feel for the game isn't
Right.
super athletic, holds his own defensively, has some strength. I do think GG will need to get stronger, obviously, and use his body better to do that, but I like that one. And then I have Kyle Kuzma and RJ Barrett.
Kyle Kuzma and RJ
Now,
Barrett.
RJ Barrett's more of a guard, obviously, but I think they kind of play at a similar pace. RJ Barrett is 6'6", so it's not like he's small, but Kyle Kuzma, defensively is not great, but can score the ball in a variety of ways. Might be able to have a little more pop to him than Gigi does, but I think those are the other two. Bo Young's my favorite though. He was the first one.
That's a great one. I have like a Marcus Morris written down. I guess
I think that's a
pre.
floor,
You think
or
it's a
maybe
floor
not a
for him?
floor.
I don't think it's like now Marcus Morris. Man, it's awful to say like anything Pistons because they've been so bad. When he was on the Pistons, he was really good.
Because a lot of people just think of Marcus Morris as like a 3-and-D type guy.
But I don't think he's always been that. I think of him more because he was on the Pistons like a
He
face
can
up.
score.
As a face up guy, which I think at the very least, I guess you're right. Yeah, at the very least, I think Gigi can be that, a face up 4 type guy. He's 6'8", wingspan 6'11". I mean, he's got all the moves, and I think the step throughs, the pivots, the post moves, whatever you want to call it. I think he has all of that. I guess it's the playmaking and creation that's going to turn him into like a Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yeah, and if he defends, because he does have potential to defend, if he can defend, I don't think he has Jaden McDaniels' potential to defend because
No,
McDaniels has the length.
the length.
But Gigi Jackson can at the very least can stop 4s and stop 3s on most teams. So if he reaches his potential, so that'll be the interesting part. But yeah, I'm interested more in his situation, where he goes. Obviously, I know. Let me quickly bring up a mock draft, just to get a feel for who's down here. I should have brought up Tankathon. Let's see. KOC has him going to the Hornets at 27, which I don't love. I think somewhere like, I didn't realize the bottom of this draft has a bunch of the bad teams in it.
Because they traded for all the picks.
Yeah. Interesting. But still, I think that I would want him to go to more of a middle of the pack team. I don't want him to go to
a Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte. I don't want him to go to Charlotte. Send him to like Brooklyn or like Sacramento or Memphis.
Sacramento would be interesting. Memphis would be interesting.
Clippers, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's what I'm thinking. So, yeah. Anything else?
I think that's it. Oh, actually, yeah. No. So we already kind of said floor. What's the floor ceiling? Just like without comps.
I still think his ceiling is his high. It's hard to put a real pin in his ceiling.
Yeah.
But I think his ceiling is really high. I wouldn't be surprised if he eventually made an all-star team.
Yeah. I agree.
Like, I don't think he's a lock all-star. Like if he at his ceiling, I don't think he's like a 25-8. Like I don't think he's quite that high, but could he get to 20 and 10, like 20 and 7 at some point in his career? Yeah, I definitely think so.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That's a good ceiling. Floors are difficult because it's hard to see players completely falling out the league. Like I can't see that. But if he can't defend and he's just a scorer,
yeah,
then he's a bench player.
Yeah, I guess
around.
Rotation forward.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us. Hope y'all enjoyed the episode. Let us know what you think of Gigi Jackson in the replies below. Check out the other videos on our channel. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the subscribers, the followers, all that stuff. And we'll be back with another episode soon.